Welcome to today's Explainer. We live in a culture that is constantly screaming at us to hustle, to build our personal platforms, and to make absolutely sure we're the main character in every room we enter. But what if the actual secret to finding peace is the exact opposite of all that? Today, we're diving into a fascinating mental model that completely flips how we view our place in the universe. We're going to explore the profound art of decreasing and why finding real life in humility is literally the ultimate antidote to our modern exhaustion. I want you to think about this for a second. What actually happens when you realize you aren't the main character? I mean, really imagine the sheer relief of just stepping out of the spotlight, shedding that relentless everyday pressure to be the hero or the smartest person in the room. Sure, it sounds totally terrifying to our egos at first, but what if it's actually incredibly freeing? To put this into perspective, comedian Jerry Seinfeld actually has a really fascinating habit. He keeps photos of the vast universe taken by the Hubble Space Telescope pinned right there on the wall of his writing room. Whenever he feels his own Hollywood status starting to feel a bit too important, he just looks up at those massive galaxies to snap right out of it. As he puts it, "I don't find being insignificant depressing, I find it uplifting." It's brilliant, right? Shrinking our ego doesn't crush us. It literally lifts the weight of the world right off our shoulders. Let's set the stage with Act 1, the context. So why is this kind of humility so incredibly hard for us to achieve? Well, the author of our newsletter, Papa, hits the nail right on the head in his take. He points out that, biologically speaking, we are hardwired for survival. We are fundamentally built to protect our status and look out for number one. And that means true humility, the act of willingly stepping back to let someone else shine, goes completely against our innate instincts. It's basically a biological rebellion. And to see this kind of rebellion in action, we really need to look at a historical figure who embodied it perfectly: John the Baptist. His defining historical role was the forerunner. Just think about the sheer magnitude here. After 400 years of silence, he arrives on the scene. The guy is wildly popular, drawing these massive crowds out into the wilderness. He is at the absolute pinnacle of spiritual influence. And yet, his entire job description was simply to prepare the way, fully knowing he was not the final destination. Which brings us to Act 2, the tension. This is the exact moment where our natural survival instincts violently clash with a higher calling. For a short time, John and Jesus actually had overlapping ministries, baptizing in the exact same region. But pretty soon, the crowd started shifting toward Jesus. And John's disciples, well, they panicked. They got jealous and became fiercely protective of their quote-unquote market share. They actually rushed back to John, complaining that everyone was leaving to go follow Jesus. They didn't see Jesus as the fulfillment of their own mission. They saw him as a direct threat to their platform. What John's disciples were feeling right there is exactly what George Orwell famously called the Sancho Panza survival instinct. See, we all have this dual nature. There's our noble side that wants to be part of something bigger, and then there's our inner Sancho Panza, that little voice of the belly that constantly urges us to protect our territory and secure our own status. John's followers were letting that inner survival voice completely drive the bus, operating purely on these earthly terms of competition and jealousy. Let's move into Act 3, the connection. Now, instead of giving in to that Sancho Panza instinct and getting defensive, John completely subverts the tension with this beautiful, almost cinematic metaphor. He tells his panicked followers to think about a wedding. He says, "Look, I'm not the groom. I am merely the friend of the bridegroom. And if you're the best man at a wedding, you don't throw a fit when the attention is entirely on the couple, right? Your joy is actually made complete when your friend succeeds." John found his absolute, ultimate thrill in playing a supporting role. And that leads directly to one of the most profound statements in historical theology. He must increase, but I must decrease. Listen, this wasn't just some reluctant concession on John's part. It was an absolute necessity. It's this radical antidote to our deeply self-centered culture. It's the realization that the fading recognition of the minister is actually required for the increasing glory of the subjects. It is spiritual humility in its purest, most beautiful form. So, why must he decrease? Well, John lays out the fundamental logic of their origins. He openly acknowledges that he is earthly, he's limited, he's just human. But the bridegroom? He comes from above, he is heavenly and infinite. It's simply the physics of the spiritual realm. The earthly must inevitably and joyfully yield to the heavenly. Let's bring all of this together in the synthesis.
So, what does this all mean for us? How do we actually apply this radical humility to our daily hustle? First off, we need to direct our focus to something vastly greater than ourselves, pointing to the truth, instead of constantly trying to build up our own personal brands. Second, we've got to actively reject that toxic competitiveness. Tearing someone else down just to elevate yourself? That's just that earthly survival instinct doing the talking. And third, find actual, deep joy in supporting roles. True freedom isn't found in fighting to be the main character. It's found in peacefully embracing the exact role you were assigned.
But here's the catch. Because our biological wiring is so deeply ingrained, we honestly can't overcome our egos alone. As Papa's Take reminds us, this requires daily, intentional submission. We have to pray continually for forgiveness, thanks, and guidance. Humility isn't just some one-time achievement you unlock. It is a daily, active practice of stepping back, letting go, and letting someone else increase. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Are you ready to find the profound joy of stepping out of the spotlight? I want to challenge you today. Find just one area in your life where you can intentionally decrease so that something much greater can increase. Embrace the incredible peace that washes over you when you finally stop exhausting yourself trying to be the main character and start enjoying the beautiful reality of the supporting role. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.